Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sujana, working as microbiology faculty in Telangana Tribal Welfare Degree College, Shadnagar. Today, my lecture is on industrial fermentations. Welcome to the world of microbiology. In today's industrial microbiology fermentation, I'll be covering various contents like introduction, fermentation history, products, industrial scale fermentations, types of fermentations, their advantages, their disadvantages, and summary. Now, what is microbiology? Microbiology is a field of biology which is relevant to the life of microorganisms. What are microorganisms? What are microbes? Microbes are living things, very minute, which are not visible to our naked eye. So, in order to observe them, we need to take the help of a magnifying glass or a microscope. So, basically, they are living things that must be greatly magnified to be seen. Now, this group of microorganisms includes bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Coming to industrial microbiology. Industrial microbiology is a branch of applied microbiology in which we are exploiting microorganisms for the production of important substances. What are those important substances? They're important substances like antibiotics, food products, enzymes, amino acids, vaccines, and some other fine chemicals. So, microorganisms are producing certain enzymes which are catalyzing or bringing about the reactions by converting the substrates into useful products. Now, this process of conversion with the help of microorganisms is nothing but the fermentation process. Now, we humans, we are surrounded by millions of microorganisms. Let it be in the air, water, or in the nature, in the soil around us, everywhere these microorganisms are existing. So, among these microorganisms, 99% of them do not affect us in a bad way. So, basically, there are some good microbes and there are some bad microbes. So, good microbes are such microbes which exist with us in a symbiotic manner and they help us in many ways. Not only us, they help plants, they give certain important nutrients to the plants for their growth. They bring about many natural cycles, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur cycles, and they stabilize the ecosystem. And they are involved in many other processes, especially in bioremediation, decomposition of organic matter, all these things. But there are some very few percentage or like very small percentage of microorganisms like 0.1% which can cause diseases in us. Now they are harmful to us and they are like pathogenic microorganisms. Now the important microorganisms with relevant to industrial microbiology, they come under good microbes because they bring about fermentations, they give us very important products which can help us in many ways. When we look into the market today, we have so many fermented products available, like many sauces, soy sauce, fish sauce, which are used in Chinese food. And in our day-to-day life, in our kitchen also, we find fermented foods like curd, like conversion of milk to curd. We see the idli batter, dosa batter, which are straight away the products of fermentation. So the lassi, the kombucha tea, the fermented tea which is available in the market, the bread fermentation, all these fermentation products are available to us. Now this is because of the fermentations, healthy fermentations which are brought about by useful microorganisms. Now fermentation was first defined by Pasteur where he said that it is a life without air. So basically fervor in Latin means to boil. So fermentation technology is such a technology where microorganisms are grown in large scale to produce valuable commercial products which bring about chemical transformations. So fermentation technology invariably takes the help of these useful microorganisms to produce valuable commercial products in large-scale fermentations. Fermentation. To define fermentation, it can be said that fermentation is the chemical transformation of organic substances into simpler compounds by the action of enzymes which are produced by microorganisms like molds, yeast, or bacteria. Now, when we talk about this, idea of fermentation, when relevant to the food production, it may more broadly refer to any process in which the activity of microorganism specifically brings about a desirable change to any food product of choice or to a beverage. Coming to the history of fermentation, basically all of the human civilization, the history when we look into it, it consists of the most important three different kinds of fermentations. Alcoholic fermentation, which is very popular among different civilizations. Acetic acid fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. Lactic acid fermentation is probably the oldest fermentation method where milk was used by various civilizations for fermentation processes, basically to increase the shelf life. So it was one of the oldest fermentations which was applied by many civilizations and which was existing from a pretty long time. Whereas alcoholic fermentation is most popular because of the end product use of alcohol. Alcohol was used as a beverage and alcohol was also used for medical reasons. This is the timeline of fermentation. Basically, you can see here that fermented milk products became a part of human diet as early as 2000 to 12,000 BCE. So they were existing from a very long time, the fermented milk products. And cheese was there. Cheese was prepared and it was used in civilizations from the Iraq around 7000 BCE. Wine was part of almost all the fermentations, and barley was fermented. Meat sausages were being prepared, and Chinese especially, they were very good in fermenting soya bean and rice. From rice they used to prepare acetic acid fermentations like vinegar product, and they were also using soya bean soy sauce, what the modern version we are using soy sauce. The same kind of old version of it was being prepared by Chinese civilizations. So first whiskey was distillery was founded in Ireland at 1276 CE. So you can understand that all these products were pretty much existing from a very long time. So they took the help of these fermentations to increase the shelf life of food. Now, the understanding of fermentation actually only started after the discovery made by the Louis Pasteur. So, Louis Pasteur, who is the father of microbiology, he was the one who gave a proper definition for fermentation. He was the one who gave a principle of how in what fashion the fermentation process is brought about by microorganisms, what microorganisms were responsible for fermentations. All these were given proof by Louis Pasteur. So Louis Pasteur was the important scientist when we are talking about fermentation, because his contributions to the field of microbiology are innumerable. He had a contribution in the field of fermentation science. He had a contribution in establishing etiology of a disease, like how a disease is caused, what organism is responsible. And he also has devised certain protocols for increasing the shelf life of products, like the pasteurization technique. Even today, when for preservation of milk and fruit juices, some of the fruit juices, we are using the same principle of pasteurization, which were initially discovered by Louis Pasteur. So he was also one of the important scientists who gave a solid proof disproving the theory of spontaneous generation. and he said that only living things give rise to living things. He has also given prominent pointers or prominent evidences towards the preparation of vaccines and immunizations. Taking the help of fermentation, Louis Pasteur was able to produce certain alcohols like amyl alcohol and ethyl alcohol and butyl alcohol. But in 1960s, the property like the discovery of fermentation of that is alcohol fermentations has lost its charm because the chemical synthesis of alcohol was becoming very inexpensive, and that is the reason why people lost interest in the process of making alcohol with the help of fermentations. Because of the low cost, they always preferred the chemical methods. So it is often mentioned that today's modern biotechnology, it originated from alcohol fermentation, knowledge of the primitive people. But the development of genetic engineering definitely has paved way for better use of this fermentation process for important products, for the production of important products like vaccines, antibiotics, enzymes, and other biosimilars or biomimicking compounds which are used in the treatments of various deadly diseases like cancers and other things. So these are some of the microorganisms and their fermented products which we are observing in the market, like Swiss cheese, cheddar cheese, yogurt, soy sauce, wine, beer, acetone, isopropanol, and vinegar. Now, all of these organisms have the inherent enzymes to convert glucose to pyruvic acid. But again, from pyruvic acid, they give rise to different products. Now, the flavor of Swiss cheese is because of the production of CO2 and propionic acid by Propionibacterium. In the same fashion, the pyruvic acid is being converted into CO2 and ethanol, carbon dioxide and ethanol, which is the reason why it is giving a particular alcoholic flavor to the wine and beer. Now, this is brought about by a special yeast called Saccharomyces. So, all of them are able to have a definite set of enzymes which can bring about the fermentation of glucose with the help of intermediate pyruvic acid into different products which are flavoring agents for the final products which we are obtaining. So when we look into the basic cell of microorganisms, there are two kind of metabolites. One is called the primary metabolite, and some of them are called as secondary metabolites. Now, what is the difference between a primary metabolite and a secondary metabolite? A primary metabolite is a kind of metabolite which is directly involved in growth, development, and reproduction of the cell. There are some good examples like lactic acid, amino acids, pyruvic acid, essential metabolites which are very important for cell growth, development, and reproduction. Now, coming to secondary metabolites, these are specialized metabolites. Specialized metabolites which are not required for growth, not required for development, not required for reproduction, but they have indirect effect wherein they mediate ecological interactions, or they give a kind of advantage to the microorganisms in their surrounding places. So basically secondary metabolites are examples like toxins, antibiotics, which give a collateral support to the cell. So directly it is not involved in either growth or development or reproduction, but definitely it is giving a survival advantage. Before going into fermentations, let us see the design of a fermenter. On the right side, the picture shown here is how a fermenter appears in an industry. So basically, fermenter is a big chamber where there are controlled conditions of pH, temperature, and oxygen supply. So a fermenter has different sources, points of entry. For example, it has a inoculation pipe, where through which sterilized medium is being sent. Once it is sterilized, the medium is connected to this pipe and it is being transferred into the fermenter. In the same fashion, when the process of fermentation is going on, when the protein is present inside the medium, there is a chance of formation of foam in this particular headspace. This area is called as headspace. So whenever there is lot of foam, it can give rise to contamination. So anti-foam agents are added to reduce the foam. So this particular pipeline is the pipe where anti-foam agents are being added whenever it is required. Now fermenter also has a motor fixed here to which there is an impeller which is connected. So basically this impeller is continuously moving inside to mix the constituents, also to distribute the cells homogeneously. Whatever inoculum or the microbial cells which we are putting inside the medium for fermentation, that is being distributed to all corners. The cells are being distributed so that there is uniform growth with the help of the movement of this impeller. Also, impeller helps in distribution of the oxygen which is being supplied through a special inlet called air inlet. So a filtered air is being sent continuously into the fermenter, and these impellers are always moving so that the oxygen is supplied to every nook and corner of the medium. So there is one port for adding sterilized acid and base. Whenever the pH of the medium is going up or down than the optimum, always sterilized acids or bases can be added to stabilize the pH. So it has a pH probe, it has a temperature probe, it has an oxygen sensor, wherein continuous monitoring of pH, temperature and oxygen is being carried out and given outside in a separate connected computer. Now, if you look inside the fermenter, there is also a special blade kind of plate kind of structures called as baffles. So these baffles, they help in the help in disturbing the vortex. Whenever there is a movement of impeller inside, there is a chance of forming a round circular vortex in the center. So to disturb this vortex, these bafflers are always helping. So there is, apart from this, there is a special pipe for harvesting. That is, after fermentation, to take out the medium, there is a harvesting pipe through which we can take out the harvest after the fermentation. So also fermenters usually are covered by cooling jackets. Now these cooling jackets, they reduce the temperatures which are arising because of the fermentations. Inner fermentation activity can increase the temperature. So to bring down the temperatures, water is continuously circulated through this cooling jacket so that the fermentation temperature is maintained constant. So this is the basic design of a fermenter, and it can be changed sometimes with respect to one fermenter to the other fermenter, which we will be discussing later on. Now, one important thing is fermenter can be made with glass, or fermenter can be made with stainless steel also. But glass material is used for walls only when we are talking about very small fermenters like 5-liter fermenter or 7-liter fermenter like that in the laboratory. And these fermenters, glass fermenters, can be just carried and put in the autoclave, and they can be autoclaved before the process of fermentation. But when we talk about the stainless steel fermenters which are used for large fermentations, large volume fermentations, it is not possible to dismantle them, or neither they will fit in the autoclave. So how is that they are being, the proper sterilization is being brought about? Now there is another place where steam is continuously generated in the industries, but before going for steam sterilization, first the fermenters are washed with 0.5 normal NaOH. So 0.5 normal NaOH has high pH, So it has been completely filled in the fermenter until the brim. And now they take 3 volumes of the fermenter. Let's say the fermenter is 200 liters. That means they take 600 liters of zero point 0.5 normal NaOH, and they wash 3 times completely with the NaOH, and then after washing with it again they wash with double distilled water so that no remnants of this NaOH are left out. After this process again they connect it to the steam, generated steam. So steam sterilization is also brought about. Now this process is called as SIP in industry, which is nothing but sterilization in place, because we are not moving the fermenter to a autoclave. We are getting we are getting the process of sterilization done at the same place. So it is called sterilization in place. So as we saw, once the fermenter is ready, the next step would be the loading of medium, sterilized medium. Media is being sterilized at a different place and it is being transferred into the already sterilized fermenter. Now once the sterilization process is finished and the media is being put in the fermenter, then we go for inoculation with the specific organism of choice. Now, what is the aim of industrial scale fermentation processes? To get a pure product at higher concentration. So now this can be achieved by regulating the concentration of oxygen, the temperature, the pH, and other measurable and variable parameters. So if all these parameters are existing at optimum level, then only the growth of the bacteria is happening in the right fashion. So most of the fermentation products that we are getting, they are expressed in the log or exponential phase. Now that is the reason why it becomes essential for us to maintain proper oxygen, temperature, pH and other parameters at optimum level so that the growth is happening in a proper fashion. Now, once the fermentation requirements like a fermenter is ready, medium is ready, let us look into the fermentation process flow. A general process flow of fermentation. The fermentation process can be divided into 2 different broad steps. One is called as upstream process and the other one is called as downstream process. Now, upstream process consists of stages like preparing the seed culture, the culture required for the inoculation or the fermentation to be brought out. The inoculation preparation is also called as seed culture, and then this particular seed culture is inoculated into a seed fermenter. So seed fermenter is a small fermenter where the bacterial cells or the microbes which are required for fermentation are inoculated, and they are young and ready to be inoculated into the big fermenter. So third step would be production fermentation, which is brought about either in a bioreactor or a fermenter. And after the process of fermentation, after the process of incubation, when the product is obtained, then the supernatant is being harvested. The cells and the liquid portion and the biomass is separated, which in a process called harvesting. So the process of inoculation preparation to the process of harvesting, all these steps will come under upstream process. Then comes the downstream process, that is from the harvesting step till packing of the product. What are the things which you are going to do? Like what are the steps you are taking? What are the processes which you are implying or using so that the product is being purified or product is in higher concentrations? All these are designed in downstream process of fermentation. So you can look in the figure also. We take a stock culture, that is the culture responsible for the fermentation. Then we inoculate into fresh medium so that we get young and actively dividing cells. as inoculum, and these cells first they are prepared in a conical flask in the laboratory, and from here it has been inoculated into a small fermenter, seed fermenter, and once the seed fermenter or the seed culture after proper growth is ready with optimum number of cells, it is being inoculated into the bioreactor or the fermenter. Now this fermenter is already ready with the fresh medium. Into that the seed is being added. So once the seed is added, all the required parameters are optimized, and the fermentation is being carried out for the required time. Then after that, the harvesting is done, where the culture fluid, if the product is extracellular, which is produced outside of the cell, then the culture fluid is collected. Now this is nothing but your harvesting step. So after harvesting, they go for downstream processing. That is steps like purification, chromatography, and other gel permeation techniques like this, where impurities are removed and the product concentration is increased and obtained in a pure form. Such steps are employed, and finally the product is being packed. Now this is the general flow chart of any fermentation, um, generally what we observe in the industry. Let us look into the upstream fermentation steps, which we were talking about in the last slide. The first step is inoculum preparation or seed culture. So inoculum is a substance or a culture that is introduced into the fresh medium. Now these cells can grow in the medium. They can bring about the metabolism or the fermentation to produce the product. Okay. So inoculum production step is present in fermentation process, and you know that one loop full of cells, one small loop full of cells or one drop of cell is not enough to produce your product if you put in a fermenter. Why? Because if you put very small number of cells in a big fermenter, it will take very long time. It will take very long time, and it cannot give you an efficient concentration of the product. So one loop full of cells, obviously it requires longer period of time to ferment. So even if you introduce a small amount of cells also, it will be of no use. For that reason, it becomes essential that we take enough optimum number of microbial cells to bring about the fermentation to get our product. So inoculum, that is the reason why it is being prepared in a stepwise manner. So slowly in a increasing volume, with increasing volume, slowly the culture is adapted to larger volumes. Now look at the figure here. First we start the culture to grow in very small volumes, and then we go for then we re-inoculate the culture into medium volumes of the medium. That is medium volumes means not very large volumes, not very small volumes, in between. Now once we have a proper growth here, we take the culture again and re-inoculate into the large volume. Now this process is called as scaling up. So scaling up is an essential step which is being followed in all industries. So from laboratory scale to the medium scale, which is called as pilot scale, and from pilot scale to industrial scale, all fermentations are being optimized. Okay, so generally the inoculum size which is used for various fermentations is 5 to 10% of the total volume. Let's say if the volume is 100 ml, then 5% is 5 ml. Okay, so for 100 liters it is 5 liters. So 5% to 10% depending on the growth of the organism, it is being fixed. So once the inoculum is ready, it is being scaled up, and seed culture is ready. The next step would be to introduce this particular inoculum into the production medium, which is present in the bioreactor or fermenter. Many a times bioreactor is often used with the term fermenter, but there is a slight difference here. A bioreactor can be used for growth of microorganisms, or it can also be used for bringing about certain reactions with the help of catalysts, which are which we get from the microorganisms. So basically, bioreactor brings about the catalytic changes which we are expecting to get our product. So all those reactions can be carried out in a bioreactor. But when we talk about fermenter, fermenter exclusively is used to maintain the physical conditions, physical parameters like temperature, pH, oxygen and all, where if it is maintained properly, then proper growth of an organism can be achieved. So we can say that fermenter is a kind of bioreactor and it is not the other way around. Now, after the process of fermentation, some of the microorganisms take 24 hours, some might take 48 hours, some might take 5 days for the production of the product. It depends on what stage of the growth the microorganism is producing the product. It depends on the time taken for fermentation. So once the production is finished, then the next step would be to harvest the product. So there are two possibilities here, because the product what you are looking for, it can be extracellular, that is produced outside of the cell, or it can be intracellular, which is produced inside of the cell. So in both the cases, it is necessary that first you go for harvest, take out the broth which is full of culture, and then you go for the downstream process. Before going for downstream processing, you go for centrifugation. So what happens in centrifugation when you are subjecting this particular fermented broth to centrifugation? It is divided into solid and liquid. Solid is the biological mass or the cells, and liquid is the broth fluid which is present devoid of the cells. Now liquid, if your product is extracellular, then it will be in this particular liquid. If your product is intracellular, then you have to take the biological cells or biomass which has accumulated down. So depending on the product where it is available, then you will choose the kind of downstream process which has to be utilized. Now let us look into a downstream process flow. So I am just giving you a generalized view. So after fermentation, we obtain the harvest. So after harvest, what do? We go for lysis. By adding some chemicals, we try to lyse the cells. So what happens? The cells are dead and the cells open up, and now it has become a complete mixture of different kinds of proteins and other material. So after lysis, then there are two possibilities. When we go for centrifugation, what happens? We get solid particles and we also get the liquid portion. Now sometimes instead of centrifugation, if the product is very sensitive, sometimes it can also be subjected to filtration. So what happens when you go for filtration? All the solid particles, because of the molecular sieving, it is being left out. So you separate out the solids, you separate out the liquids, and you subject them to different processes. Let's say my product is in the liquid, extracellular production of some kind of enzyme, let's say enzyme or any other kind of product. So what is our interest? Our interest should be processing this particular fluid, because the fluid after centrifugation or filtration is the place where we will find our product, because it is extracellular. So this particular primary recovery fluid which we obtain, we subject it to clarification. What is clarification? Clarification is done by adding certain salts like ammonium sulfate or certain solvents like acetone and all. Why? To remove the impurities, to remove the unnecessary proteins, unnecessary nucleic acids and all. Clarification is done. This is sometimes also called as depth filtration. So once this is subject to depth filtration and precipitation, what happens? All the solids will settle down. The fluid will be clear. So then it is being subject to filtration, ultrafiltration. So why one has to do ultrafiltration is to, let's say I have 100 liters of the product. So what I try to do is I try to reduce the volume to 10 liters so that the processing becomes easy. Plus, by reducing 100 liters to 10 liters, I am trying to increase the concentration of the product. So by ultrafiltration, I bring down the solution to almost 1/4 of its volume so that the product what I am expecting will be in higher concentration. So after ultrafiltration, it is subjected to different chromatography technique based on the product nature. So it can be ion exchange chromatography, or if the product is charged molecule, then we go for ion exchange chromatography, where based on the charges we can remove the impurities. Or we can go for gel filtration, where based on the size of the product, there is a column here which acts like a molecular sieve, so that based on the size the products are, or the impurities and products are coming out of it. So once we get our pure product, what do? Again, we go for buffer exchange to remove all the salts which we have added during clarification, to remove all those salts. Then to get the pure compound, we subject it to buffer exchange, which is also called as dialysis sometimes. So okay, so once we do this, we remove all the leftover salts and our product is now ready to be formulated and packed. So this is a typical downstream process flow for the extracellular product which you are producing in fermentation. Let's take the intracellular product. Suppose your product is there inside the cell, then what you have to do, you cannot throw away this particular cell debris what you got. So the cell debris is again taken down, and it is being molecular, there is a molecular sieve where unnecessary material is taken out. Again, by chromatography, expanded bed and ion exchange chromatography, DNA is removed, and then by other size exclusion chromatography, all the RNA is also removed, protein is removed, because the presence of DNA, RNA and protein will interfere with your product. That is the reason why it becomes essential to remove all these compounds. So once the impurities are removed, and then again it is being subjected to the same kind of gel chromatography, and then ultrafiltration, where all the salts are removed, and then it is being formulated. So these are some of the downstream process steps used for various kinds of protocols, like for extracellular proteins as well as intracellular proteins. Now that we have an idea about the general fermentation process and upstream and downstream processing flow, let us see the different kinds of or types of fermentations which we see in industries. One is aerobic fermentation, anaerobic fermentation, solid state fermentation, surface fermentation, and submerged fermentation. What is aerobic fermentation? A fermentation process which is carried out in the presence of oxygen is called as aerobic fermentation. Now, why is this oxygen essential? Oxygen is essential in fermentation because it is required for the growth and reproduction of microorganisms. What about anaerobic fermentation? Anaerobic fermentation process is carried out in the absence of oxygen. Okay, so it is very essential that there is no presence of oxygen during fermentation. Now there are again two types here, where facultative anaerobes are there, obligate anaerobes are there. What are facultative anaerobes? Facultative anaerobes can withstand a certain, that is minimal amount of oxygen. Even upon exposure to certain small amount of oxygen, still they can grow and they can bring about the fermentation. Whereas obligate anaerobes are such kind of microorganisms wherein even a small amount of oxygen can inhibit their growth. So there are two different kinds of organisms which have been employed in anaerobic fermentations. What is solid state fermentation? Solid state fermentation is a fermentation which is carried out in the absence or near absence of free water. Okay, so this doesn't mean that there is completely absence of water. What is the meaning of solid state fermentation is the medium is not like a liquid medium, not like in the liquid medium what we see in other fermentations. So little bit of water is there, but it is existing along with the material or the nutrients which are there in the medium. So in the nutrients itself, moisture is there to support the growth of the microorganisms, but there is enough moisture only which is present in the substrate. It will not come out of the medium like in a flowing or liquid which is coming out of the substrates. It is not happening like that. Okay, so there is moisture which is necessary to allow the growth and also metabolic activity of microorganisms, but there is no free flowing water or free water. Okay, now as you can look in the picture here, you can see here natural substrates are being used for solid state fermentation. It is in the form of solid. You cannot see free flowing free water. Water is there enough inside the substrates to bind them, and this is enough for the growth of the organisms to bring about the metabolic activities. Okay, so various fungi, actually many different fungi are the preferred organisms for production of various enzymes, like cellulase, amylase, lipase, xylanase, pectinase. All these enzymes have varied applications in cloth industry, starch industry, fat industries, and paper industries, and fruit juice industries. So all these enzymes are obtained by solid state fermentation using many different fungi like Aspergillus species. Aspergillus is one such fungi which is used widely for production of various enzymes. Now this particular Aspergillus, as you can see in the plates, this is Aspergillus niger. It can grow in the plates, it can grow in the liquid medium also, it can grow in the husk of wheat, rice, and all these things. So various you can grow them on plates, on natural substrates, or anywhere, and again you can scale them up, and you can seed this particular solid state substrates for the fermentative production of the product. So as I was saying that the main medium of fermentation here is in the form of solid. So different kinds of natural substrates are used in solid state fermentation. Some of the natural substrates used in solid state fermentation are sugarcane bagasse, tea waste, tea leaves waste, wheat bran, the upper layer of wheat which has been removed, and sawdust, apple pomace, coconut seed cake, or groundnut seed cake. All these agricultural wastes which are not being utilized for any other purpose can be used for the solid state fermentation. So let us look into the fermentation process flow, that is solid state fermentation process flow. It obviously, as I told you here, the substrate is a natural substrate. So it can be a bran, or it can be some kind of powder, or it can be some kind of seed cake, etc. Okay, so first a substrate is taken, then it is subjected for mechanical and heat pre-treatment. What is mechanical treatment? If suppose you are taking sugarcane bagasse. Now bagasse is in different lengths. Some are very long, some are very short. So you have to trim them to a proper size, such that they can be fit into trays, like I showed you in the pictures, so that it can be treated properly with water, enough moisture, so that the organism is growing. So mechanically you have to trim them, remove the unnecessary parts, and cut them into uniform pieces and heat them. Why you have to heat? Sometimes it has lignin inside the bagasse and all, so it becomes very hard for the organism to utilize it. So heating actually makes them little soft, so that the organism can produce the required enzymes and then break down the glucose polymers which are present in the lignin, cellulose and hemicellulose parts. Okay, so mechanical and heat pre-treatments are generally very necessary. It is also necessary because they help in sterilization of the substrates what we are taking for fermentation. So pre-treated substrate is again taken, and then solid fermentation is being carried out. Solid state fermentation can be carried out in the form of trays. You can fill up trays like I showed you in the old picture. You can fill up in trays and arrange them in a rack, or sometimes drums which have holes on them, and the drum is being rotated continuously like this. So the substrate is being put inside the drum, and the drum is rotated slowly. Such for types of fermentation is also used for solid state fermentation. Okay, so once the fermentation is finished, usually if you take Aspergillus niger, usually the product is obtained at 72 hours, something like that, because it is a fungi. It takes longer time to produce the enzymes and all to digest the content like cellulose, hemicellulose and lignin. So once we get the product, then what do? We have to extract. If your product is the enzyme, what do? You have to take the bran or the bagasse, what you have taken as a substrate, and you put the buffer and extract it mechanically. Then you have your, when you go for filtration, you have your liquid portion which has your enzyme. Now these particular products which are produced by solid state fermentations have various applications in nutrient and human health, animal feed. The left out after fermentation, whatever solid part is left out which is of no use, actually it becomes a good feed for the animal, because it is rich in enzymes. When the animals feed them, they give a good amount of milk and they become healthy, also they gain the weight. So even that part is not being wasted. The animal, it is given as animal feed. And some biofuels are also produced by this technique by using for example, Jatropha plant, which is not being used for any other purposes. Okay, so for many purposes, these enzymes and other products are also used in various industries. Now look at the advantages of solid state fermentation. First thing is, the process is very simple. You don't need a costly medium. The medium what you are taking is very reasonable. It is agricultural waste. So usually you get the product at a very cheaper rate. It is very cost effective and economical. There is no effluent release. Whatever, see, I told you, when we are taking the product, the liquid portion is taken as the product, and the solid part which is left out is being given to animals. So there are very less effluents which are being produced. And like we discussed in the fermenter, like we are going for whole fermenter sterilization with NaOH, that is sodium hydroxide and all. So everything, all this, we are again leaving them into the drain. So much of effluents are being produced in that particular submerged fermentation, which we do it in a fermenter. So this problem is not existing here. So very less effluent release is there. Product yield is also very high. The fungi are very efficient in utilizing the various substrates to give you very high yields of enzymes, and these enzymes usually are very broad acting, so they can be applied for various industries, not only one industry and one process, but they are being used in various industries. And the most important thing is it is more suitable for the fungi, as I was telling you, because the solid substrates which are present in the fermentation, they resemble the natural habitat. Now fungi has fungi grows as hyphae, like root kind of structures which they fix into the substratum and they get their energy. So because the substratum is solid, it becomes very easy for the fungi to hold fast the substrate and obtain the energy. So it grows in a very good fashion to produce lots of enzymes, which are nothing but your product in this case. And the simple downstream processing steps are also very, very simple here, because usually the crude enzymes itself are used in many different industries. So there is no need for color chromatography and other costly filters which are being used in the submerged fermentation. Now, coming to the disadvantages of solid state fermentation. The difficulty with solid state fermentation is the initial process of mixing the inoculum. Now, when we are taking a liquid inoculum and putting into a liquid media, the mixing of inoculum with the media is homogeneous. Okay, now because we are talking about a tray fermentation where so many hundreds of trays are there which are being arranged in a column. So each tray has to be inoculated separately by preparing separate samples of inoculum. So there is no homogeneity. There is no proper mixing. Physically, a person has to mix the inoculum into the solid state substrate. So the difficulty in mixing is one problem which leads to non-homogeneous growth of the culture. Now also, because fungi, when they are growing in these beds, in these tray fermentations, when you look into the lower portion of the tray where it is completely covered, upper portion, because air is circulating, the temperature is not going very high. But when you look inside, when you keep the thermometer inside the bed of the substratum in the tray, the temperature is very, very high because of the low conductivity. Okay, so because of the low air circulation and less amount of water being present, what is happening? The temperature control is not effectively managed. So there is also the problem of difficulty in online monitoring. We cannot computerize the system. So like your submerged fermentation where probes are there, it is being connected into a computer. There is a program which is continuously monitoring, rather than completely depending on the person who is working on it. It becomes a problem here because we cannot monitor it online. Physically, a person has to observe the trays every day to monitor the growth and see what the problem is. And the growth is also very, very slow, as most of the processes use fungi. As I told you, they take longer time for growth. And scaling up is also one big problem because we cannot go beyond one volume in the trays or drums which we are talking about. So, and also we should not forget the pre-treatment which we are applying for raw materials. Now, for this, we need lot of power to heat them and to sterilize them. So that is also one issue with solid state fermentations. And because of this, no proper mixing, no homogeneous growth, and no proper temperature control, there are problems arising in the yields. You cannot expect the yield to be consistent because of this unexpected problems occurring in solid state fermentation. The other type of fermentation is called surface fermentation. It is almost like a solid state fermentation, but the difference is here the substrate, the substrate is also which is used is natural substrate. Most of the fungi also grow in surface fermentations, but you see the growth of the organism only in the upper layer. Okay, so basically it is like the media is like a semi-solid form with little bit more water available than the solid state fermentation, and most of the times the organism completely grows on top of the media. Okay, one good example for surface fermentation is the soya sauce preparation. Soya sauce which is being used for ages for preparing soya sauce. So look at this process. here soya beans, wheat, they are taken, okay, and these beans and wheat grains are being cooked to steam the soya beans and to crack the wheat. So they are steamed and they are cracked and they are mixed together, right? To mix the soya beans and the wheat, they mix it. Once they mix it, these two steps are like sterilization. Then after sterilization, they are mixing in equal proportions wheat and soya beans, and then they are inoculating with the mold. Aspergillus oryzae is the culture, fungal culture, which is used for the fermentation of, fermentative production of soy sauce. So this is mixed, okay. So this after mixing, you can see here in the picture here, this is how the aspergillus grows on the small seeds, part of seeds which are present in this particular picture. Now once this is happening, they take this a seed culture called koji culture, and to this they are add salt and water, and then they keep it for several months. They keep it for several months in either pots or vessels, and they allow it to age. So this allowing and salting process which is happening, that is enough to preserve it from contamination. And after the process of holding it up for several months, what happens? You get a proper flavor to the soya sauce. Okay, so then it is taken out and then filtered. The liquid which is obtained after so many months is being filtered and it is being sterilized, and then it is properly analyzed for its quality, and then packed and sent into the market. So this process is called koji fermentation, which is being followed for soybean or soy sauce fermentation, soy sauce preparations in Japan and Korea and other countries. So this is one classical example for surface fermentation. Now let us look into the submerged fermentation. Here on my right you can see two different submerged fermenters. This one is very small one. I told you fermenters can have glass chambers or they can have steel chambers. So this is a small fermenter which is controlled in a laboratory made with glass. So you can just take out this fermenter and put it in the autoclave like I was telling you for sterilization. Now look at this big fermenter. Now you can see different sizes tanks here. These are nothing but these seed tanks which are used for scaling up, for developing of the seed. Then this big one is the final fermenter in which the fermentation is brought about. Now look at the submerged fermentation. Submerged fermentation involves inoculation of the culture into the liquid medium for the production of desired product. So the important thing is the medium which is used in submerged fermentation is in the form of liquid. Okay, we have already gone through the design of the submerged fermenter before. So submerged fermentation, because water is present in more quantity, it is more suitable for bacterial growth because bacteria require a lot of water for their growth. So in SSF, that is solid state fermentations, fungi are very effective in producing good amounts of products, whereas in submerged fermentations, bacteria can grow in a optimal conditions and they can give high amount of products. Now the products which can be obtained by submerged fermentation is antibiotics or vaccines or wine or beer. Many different products can be produced in submerged fermentations. Now, what are the raw materials used for submerged fermentation? Soluble sugars can be used, molasses which is in liquid form. Molasses actually is in thick liquid, but it can be diluted and used for the processes. Various liquid media can be used. Glycerol can be used for submerged fermentation as a carbon source. Fruit juices can be used. And for some kind of remediation, bioremediation and other processes, even sewage water or wastewater can be used for submerged fermentations. Now let us take the example of fermentative production of antibiotic in submerged fermentation. The first step would be to prepare the medium. So medium usually contains a carbon source, and you know that industry cannot afford to use glucose for the production of all the compounds because glucose is very expensive. So many a times corn steep liquor is used in place of glucose, and sometimes even glycerol is also used because it is also a cheaper carbon source. So carbon source, either corn steep liquor or glycerol is used, and media is prepared by adding other components. So medium is again heat sterilized. Medium is sterilized at very high pressure and high temperatures. After this particular step, then comes your fermentation. So once the media is ready, it is being put into the fermenter, which is already sterilized. So fermentation is done in the fed batch mode, where penicillin is a secondary metabolite of the fungus. So penicillin is the organism which is producing the antibiotic penicillin. So it is a slow grower, and it is being put in the fermenter along with the media. Now, one thing is, most of the antibiotics are not produced in log phase, or when the cells are actively growing. So the antibiotics most of the times are produced either in the early stationary phase or in the stationary phase. Okay, so that is the reason why penicillin is a slow grower, and also the product is obtained little late in the fermentation. The suitable temperature is 20 to 24 degrees at pH 6 to 6.5. Now look at the culture. The seed culture is developed by addition of penicillium spores into a liquid medium, because we are using liquid medium for the growth of the penicillium in the fermenter. The seed also we prefer liquid medium. So we take the penicillium spores, inoculate into the liquid medium and prepare the inoculum. Okay, so once the inoculum is ready, what is the next step? Take the inoculum and put it in the fermenter, which already has the media. Now once the process of fermentation is over, what do? We take out the biomass. The cells, we don't need them. The penicillium has done its task. It has released the antibiotic into the liquid medium. So now we don't want penicillium, we want only the antibiotic. So a rotary vacuum filter is commonly used to do this, to maintain the pH. Always during purification steps or downstream processing, it is very essential to check the pH at every point, because small changes in the pH will reduce the stability of the product. Okay, so the product pH is always maintained, and only when it is required in a specific purification step or whatever, then only the pH is varied. Now, after the biomass removal is solvent addition. Solvent is added to dissolve the penicillin. So, okay, so all other impurities cannot be dissolved in the solvent. Only penicillin is done, and then they go for centrifugation. So, centrifugation will separate out the waste, solid waste from the liquid thing, which now liquid solvent has the penicillin. The solid is nothing but the biomass waste, which is left out, small particles. They are being taken out, extracted. So once we have this, what happens? The liquid is taken and it is put into a drying process. There are some kind of spray dryers which they call. If you put liquid in that directly, it gives you a powder. Okay, so drying is necessary to completely remove the moisture content from the penicillin salt. So this is the fermentative process for the production of antibiotic penicillin, which is brought about by submerged fermentation. Now, submerged fermentation also is of three different types, called batch fermentation, fed batch fermentation, and continuous fermentation. Now, this is with respect to the media, how we are handling media. In batch fermentation, once we put the media in the fermenter, we are not going to disturb it after inoculation. It is being put one time, the media is being put one time into the fermenter and left it until the process of fermentation is finished, and then the media is extracted. Now, when we talk about fed batch fermentation, in fed batch fermentation, in between the fermentation also, during some steps, some external material can be added. It can be medium, it can be an inducer, it can be anything relevant to the fermentation. Okay, so in fed batch, it is just like batch fermentation, but in the intermediate, that is in between the fermentation, there is a chance that there is a possibility of adding of extra medium or extra nutrients or some such kind of material. Now, when we talk about continuous fermentation, in continuous fermentation, there is always an inlet of fresh media and also extraction of the harvested medium. Okay, so this flow of inlet nutrients and the extracting of the fermented medium is put at a constant rate. The glucose or the feed concentration, nutrient concentration is maintained at a particular concentration, so that the cells which are present inside are always existing in log phase. They're always young, they're always dividing, and they're always giving you the same consistent product. Okay, so let us see what these different kinds of fermentations are. Now, before going into the types of submerged fermentation, let us see what are the advantages of submerged fermentation. So, if it is a submerged fermentation, you can either carry out a batch fermentation or you can carry out a continuous fermentation depending upon the product. Number two, it requires very less space when compared to the solid state fermentations. The entire fermentation medium is used for the growth of the organism, whereas in solid state fermentation, always there is no 100% utility of the substrate. So the leftover substrate, I told you, after filtration, it is being fed to the animal as animal feed. Now, all the physical parameters here in submerged fermentation can be automatically maintained. As I told you earlier, there are probes for pH, probes for temperature, probes for glucose concentration, probes for oxygen concentration. So everything is automated so that the process will not go down, or the process will not vary. There is no deviation. So there is a consistent product which is being produced because of this automation in submerged fermentation. So continuous aeration and agitation is possible here. Very less labor is required because you know the process, it is automated, so less labor is required. But the product cost is usually high because the media which is used here is expensive, because it is automated, because it is being connected into artificial intelligence and other automated softwares. Obviously the product cost will be high. Also because the production area, they maintain all hygienic conditions, good manufacturing practices, good laboratory practices, complete conditions are being maintained, because most of the products produced by submerged fermentations, like your drugs, antibiotics, and vaccines and biosimilars, all these are used for humans in different treatments. So the possibility of contamination will have devastating effects. So chances of contaminations are very, very less in submerged fermentations. That is one more advantage here. What are the disadvantages of submerged fermentation? I told you cost of raw material is very high. Obviously, because it is a continuous, for continuous fermenters, which is happening continuously, you need power. A lot of power is required to maintain it. We need technically skilled people, and also because the most of the products are used for medical purposes, for treatments, the downstream processing is very, very expensive. The filters used are quite expensive, and lot of cost goes into these filtration steps. And the problem of foaming is there, and maintaining good manufacturing practices, this requires a lot of money and power, because in order to maintain a GMP lab, continuously filtered air has to be supplied into the rooms, and everyday sterility checks the air has to be tested, water has to be tested. You cannot just use normal mineral water, you have to go for double distilled water, deionized water for certain experiments. So all these things will increase the cost of the process, and maintaining is also very expensive. There should not be any kind of power cuts. When a GMP lab is there, it is essential that power will not go for more than few seconds. So that's how it has to be maintained. Those are the WHO protocols, World Health Organization protocols given to the different GMP companies. So contamination often leads to loss of entire batch. This problem is there because if there is no proper sterilization of the fermenter, or the media is not sterilized properly, then the entire batch is lost. As you know, the cost of the raw material is very high. Then the losses are, when the batch is lost also, the cost is quite expensive. So one type of fermentation is batch fermentation. So batch fermentation is a process where the microorganism is inoculated into a fixed volume of medium in a closed container. Look at the first one. The volume of the container is fixed. The volume of the media is fixed. So once the batch starts, we are not adding anything in between. Now, what is the advantage of a batch fermentation? It is a simple process. There are less chances of contamination. And coming to the disadvantages, sterilization of fermenter and equipment is very tedious because, as I told you, 3 times with NaOH and 3 times with water followed by steam sterilization. So lot of material goes into it, lot of effort and money, and lot of waste is being generated. So it is a quite tedious process, and nutrient levels also decline with time. That is there because it is a batch fermentation. Nothing is being, no fresh media is being added in between. So it is less efficient when you compare it with the continuous fermentation, because product concentration is less when compared to the continuous fermentation. Now, the second type of submerged fermentation is fed batch fermentation. So, it is a kind of modification of batch fermentation. In this, substrate is added periodically in installments as the fermentation is progressing. So, look at the fed batch. When the batch fermentation is going on, in between a substrate is added into the medium. Now, there is no taking out of medium here, just the addition step. So it is suitable for products which are repressed by high concentration of glucose or other products. So what is glucose repression? Sometimes some of the products are not produced by microorganisms when the glucose concentration is very high. Now what we have to do, if you give too much glucose in the medium, the product will not be produced. If you give less amount of medium, the cells will not grow to optimum. So we have to take care by adding the extra glucose in between intermittently, so that the glucose concentration is maintained as well as there is no back repression of the product. So glucose concentration is kept constant in such a manner that product is also produced and cells are also being divided properly. Now, one advantage of fed batch fermentation is it can overcome catabolite repression, which is because of the higher concentration of glucose, and also it has high production rate. Now, disadvantage is difficult to measure the concentration of feeding substrates. It is very difficult to constantly monitor the glucose feed as we do in continuous fermentation, which we'll see in the next slide. So complete knowledge of microorganisms is very essential to understand, especially the catabolite repression. At what concentration of glucose there is suppression of the production of product. It has to be studied with respect to the microorganism which is used in the fermentation. The third type of submerged fermentation is continuous fermentation. Fermentation is carried out in an open fermenter with nutrients added and product removed at a steady rate. So here you can see in continuous fermentation there is an inlet and there is an outlet. So through inlet they are continuously supplying the nutrient feed, probably glucose or any other carbon source which is used in the fermentation. It is being supplied constantly at a proper flow rate so that the glucose concentration in the medium is maintained at a constant level. And accordingly, accordingly, after the growth, harvest, that is the fermented broth, is also taken out to, fix the volume. So at one point of time when you take, always the volume will be constant, because the volume added and the volume taken out, it remains, proportionately in a uniform manner. That is the reason why you don't see, misproportionate volumes inside the fermenter. Now, what about the advantages? Advantages are high yield, very high yield, because once you establish the system, there is no deviation unless the physical parameters are changing. So, because it is automated, physical parameters are maintained, the chance of getting the product constantly is very, very high. High yield, suitable for continuous production of products, very less chances of contamination, because once you sterilize the fermenter, and you are supplying the fresh sterilized medium, because you are not disturbing the fermenter, there are no chances of contamination, and no frequent sterilization tedious processes which are required for continuous fermenters. Now look at the disadvantages. It's very difficult to set up, because it requires continuous monitoring, continuous supply of nutrients, and because it is a big process to establish, technical knowledge is a must for the people who are handling continuous process. And it is obviously not suitable for all kinds of products, because all the cells which are producing in log phase the products, such products can be managed in continuous fermenters, because the cells are always in log phase, young phase, so it can be maintained. But when you talk about products like toxins or antibiotics which are produced in stationary phase, early or late stationary phase, then you cannot achieve that with continuous fermentation. So for that reason, it is not suitable for all kinds of products. So to summarize, fermentations are very, very important, and microorganisms are the important organisms which are helping us to bring about these changes. So it has wider applications in agriculture, in medical, in pharma, and in industries like fabric, in paper, in juice, food industries. So wide number of applications are there because of the fermentation products which are produced by various microorganisms. And if you look at the specific terms which generally are used in industries like CIP means cleaning in process, where the fermenter is not being taken to other places, but the cleaning of the fermentation is done at that particular place. So that protocol is called as cleaning in process. And as I told you, sterilization in process, where the fermenter is sterilized at that particular place by supplying steam and necessary NaOH and double distilled water and deionized water. Now there is one more term which is used normally in industries, is SOP, standard operation procedure. That is, standard operation procedure is like the fixed protocol followed by the company. So this protocol has to be followed by every individual who is working on that particular system in the company. Now this is being prepared so that the errors which are possible because of human intervention can be minimized. So whenever a person is going to industry for training, so they are given training about these standard operation procedures, how to follow them, and if any step is being deviated, again it is being noted or brought to the notice of the higher authority, so that steps can be taken. The next one is downstream process, which I told you, DSP, which is used for purification of the product after harvest, and USP means upstream process, which is nothing but the fermentation process from inoculum to harvest. All the steps come under this particular upstream process. GMP means good manufacturing practices. In order to manufacture a good product, what are the guidelines to be followed by the company, which are devised by World Health Organization? That is nothing but your good manufacturing practices. When you talk about industries, so good manufacturing practices, good laboratory practices are some of the practices which are being followed by standard labs anywhere. So for example, if you talk about documentation, so every person has to record the date, time, and who has signed, who has checked, and everything has to be initialized by the person who is working on that particular batch or protocol and everything. So those even documentation, maintaining the sterility checks of air, water in that particular area, checking the filters of the AC, everything comes under this particular good GMP and GLP practices. Also good documentation practice, proper documentation should be there. Always blue pen has to be used. There should not be any overwritings. And handwriting should be legible. So many different parameters are there where you will be trained once. Students will be trained when they join the companies for all of these. And SSF means solid state fermentation, SMF means submerged fermentation, UF means ultrafiltration, DF means diafiltration, TFF means tangential flow filtration, or which is also called cross flow filtration. These are TFF is one common filtration procedure used in almost all the submerged fermentations in the industry. So this is a sequential filters which are placed according to the size, molecular size of cutoff. So here a big molecular size filter is placed, followed by the medium one, followed by the small one. So in a stepwise manner, when you're passing the harvest, automatically the impurities are being removed without choking the filters. Now KDA means kilodaltons, OD means optical density, and NM means nanometer. So these are some of the abbreviations which are commonly used when we are talking about the industrial microbiology processes. These are some of the books and references which you can go through for any doubts. So feel free to email me if you have uh, any doubts regarding the presentation. Hope you all have enjoyed my presentation, and thank you very much.